we go. I think Chinese economics or the economy of China is going to be, I don't know, possibly one of my new themes because I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, but in the last 10 years, China has seen an incredible technological uptick. As of 2017, one would actually have to admit, if you were following these things closely, these trends, that China is now outpacing the United States technologically in almost all areas, and actually far surpassing us in many areas. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. It's kind of interesting. During the Cold War era, we had the technological advantage against the Soviets, and I think we still, because of that, I think we still have this mindset as Americans that our might goes largely unchallenged. But these are like kind of long-held myths. Because it was true at one time, it becomes, and there's this American pride thing. But anyway, yeah, it's just simply not the case that America is this unchallenged power in the world. Certainly militarily at the moment, but yeah. So we also had the consumer market against the Soviets because we were capitalists, crony capitalists, and now they are too. Russia, because they're no longer the Soviet Union. And which were our biggest competitors at that time throughout the 20th century. But today our biggest economic rival is China, and so now they've cornered the consumer market just because they have the sheer numbers, they have the sheer bodies. They got their population is so outrageous that they actually had to martial law for population control. Although they've eased up on it now, but yeah. So the e-commerce market, let's get to this now. Is what's dominating in today's global economy, and at least in terms of distribution of consumer goods. And that's why Amazon is growing, and box stores even in your mart stores like Walmart, the king of them all, the once titanic retail monopoly that is Walmart, is actually shrinking. And you don't have to take my word for this. I mean, you can look this up. So the e-commerce market in China right now is actually much, much larger than what we have here in the United States. And sandwich that on top of an initiative the Chinese government has called the Made in China 2025 initiative, which aims to corner markets. Again, I mean, I don't know why people are not aware of this, especially in the age of Trump. So they aim to corner markets in industrial tech to bolster their competitiveness, globally. This is not empty rhetoric. Speaking of which, like America First, air quotes, just repeated over and over again to woo, the Rust Belt voters. But it ends up just being mostly hot air. America first. And, meanwhile, much is still made in China. And so, any type of new technology or any type of... So the initiative... Let me go back. So the initiative, the China Made in China 2025 initiative, is basically by 2025, any type of technology that the Chinese themselves do not control at home, they're trying to build. So they want to control basically any... So I'll get to it. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, so in 2015, we saw $160 billion investment from the government to make semiconductors in direct competition with Qualcomm. So Qualcomm chips. And China, as it stands currently, China buys more than half the semiconductors sold each year because they're the ones who are manufacturing these gadgets, these smartphones of every type. And it's crazy because there's been tons reported about this, but it's all been flying under the radar. And this is why I feel like I want to talk about this a little bit, because it seems important for the future as far as, the current market economic model, which, I don't think is the most efficient. And people who follow me know that I'm more in favor of a resource-based economy, but things being what they are as they stand currently, these are trends to watch. This whole America First thing is just really crazy and wacky. And meanwhile, here are the Chinese. So one of the areas, so China's making these chips now, okay? And they're making these chips. And one of the areas that many of these chips will probably go into is Lenovo computers. So for people who don't know, and this is another one of those things that most Americans are completely unaware of. They know about all the stuff going on at Berkeley. They know about all this other stuff. They know about all this geopolitical stuff. But what they don't know about is the economic powerhouse that is China, that is taking root in the world. And it's not just cheap crap anymore. Yeah, so people are largely unaware of this, but China took control of Lenovo computers from IBM in the 90s. I think it was 96 or 97, I forget. I'm going to post a link. So yeah, the Chinese computer industry was completely non-existent barely 20 years ago. Like when I was in high school, you know, we're talking about 1996, there was no Chinese computers. It was still like, you know, when you thought about high technology, even though they were already in kind of in a depression and a slump, the Japanese was what came to mind. And, you know, but they've slowly, so now the Chinese have slowly built up their industry by pouring money into IBM, and now they have the market. Now they have the market. So here's another one. Lenovo computers are outpacing Macs in sales. And funny enough, what's funny about that is that the Pentagon became worried because they're so worried about the fact that China controls and produces these computers that they issued a warning about possible Chinese spyware risks if you own one. So that's something to be mindful of as well. I remember when the story, this is actually a couple years old, but, you know, I don't know why. I guess it's this weird ADD. I mean, if you notice my rambling style here, the way I think is almost very much the same. One thing I'm good at, I mean, I'm not really good at public speaking, but I'm good at taking disparate elements and sort of forming a cohesive narrative. And if you cannot see these trends, I mean, look at all these. All the links will be in the description, by all means. I mean, put the pieces together yourself. Oh, and by the way, it's not just PCs where China is dominating. If you haven't heard about this, again, put the pieces together yourself. They announced this year, or actually, I think it was the end of 2016 that they announced. And I remember this because this is one of those things where, you know, I'm constantly following technology, all these things. So if you're not aware of this, they announced that they have their new supercomputer, and it was their new supercomputer was already the one that they revealed or unleashed on the world in late 2016. It's already 3 times faster than the fastest supercomputer at the time, which was built by China, and it's 5 times faster than anything that the U.S. Than the United States' best supercomputers. So apparently, Obama, he signed an executive order because we have a plan now to build a supercomputer by 2018. And, you know, in computer terms, that's like, you know, you wait 3 years. That's it. You're done. You're in the dust. You're talking about epochs of time in computer, Moore's law, you know, law of accelerating returns, all these things. So by 2018, the U.S. plans to build a computer that will somewhat come close to matching the one that the Chinese have today. But by the time it's completed, we'll literally have a 3 to 5 year time lag on wherever the current Chinese supercomputer will be. So that's where we are as the US in technology. This is why I'm saying, like, everyone knows this by now. Technology is the thing. This is, if you want to be dominant in the global market, if you want to be the world's, oh man, I can't, because, you know, the US used to have IBM, we had Apple. We no longer have the technological dominance, and it's just something to be mindful of. And so next, yeah, so there's many different areas across the field that are and will be really important economically, and where the U.S. is losing the edge. I mean, to cut it short, make a long story short, e-commerce, this is my next point here, is huge. E-commerce is huge. Like I said, with Amazon, and now currency is rapidly going digital, and that's going to be one of the next steps. And I know a lot of the Alex Jones types think, you know, and there's an expression that I like. It's that money talks, but cash knows how to keep quiet, and I like that aspect of cash. And so the whole digital, being able, like banks or governments will be able to just kind of shut down your digital account and cut you off. That is a real fear. That's a real legitimate fear. And of course they'll do that under the guise of whatever, terroristic threats or whatever. But so digital payments, what they call Fintech, that is financial tech. It's short for financial Fintech, if you heard this term. So in regards to Fintech, half the world's Fintech investment, if you don't know this, again, which you probably don't, people who are subscribed to me or people who stumble upon this video, I bet you don't know this. Maybe 1 or 2 of you do. Yeah, so half the world's Fintech last year, or in the year, was done in China. And so Trump Trump talked a big game about jobs and economy and building walls to bring back jobs, but when it comes to building walls, China, they're old pros, and I don't think I need to remind anybody of this. We all know the Great Wall of China. They've thrown up a wall around as many markets now. Again, if you're watching, and by watching I don't mean this video, I mean if you're watching the trends, as they've thrown up as many walls around as many markets to try and control them as they can, to create their own indigenous technology. That's what the aim of the Made in China 2025 initiative aims to do. So Google, Amazon, Facebook, any of the big names we're familiar with who seek to dominate the global market in their respective arenas, they're all running into a wall. When it comes to China, they're all running into a wall of indigenous rivals. And that have gone from adapting mainly, American-made technology, because a lot of this stuff is so big right now, and it all kind of came from America. Everyone thinks like, no, we're going to continue to dominate, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. And a case in point, so now, that technology that's made by Americans is being sharpened to strike at the heart of the global economy by the Chinese. And basically, to illustrate what I'm talking about, Uber. So I'm going to pull this up. Uber. Here's another story. No one seems to notice. And, everyone's in their little Western-centric bubble, but definitely wake up out of your Western-centric bubble, because Uber, which is obviously going through their ups and downs in their effort to monopolize the taxi industry, will they, Lyft, you've got all these things going on, but who will end up eventually dominating? Who knows, in the U.S. anyway. But in the Chinese market, they can't put a dent in it. And, Uber actually isn't making any profit. This is something that just came out. So in China, their rival is making profit, hand over fist. And their Chinese rivals actually, but when Uber tried to go to China, their Chinese rivals bought them out. Because Uber realized, like, okay, we started this, we built the infrastructure here, but we can't really, we can't do anything here. So their Chinese rivals said, like, all right, we're going to buy you out. So that's what they did. And, so you got that. And now here's another seismic rumbling from the Financial Times here. Then this is a direct quote. Chinese mobile payments were nearly 50 times greater than those in the U.S. last year. Market data show. Highlighting Chinese internet companies' strong position in a market segment viewed as a gateway to the Fintech ecosystem. Okay, so that's a direct quote. And again, all links in the description. And this is largely because of an app called WeChat, which actually I downloaded that because I went through a phase where I was going to try and learn Chinese. I'm still kind of going back and forth with that. But anyway, but also, so I've used WeChat before. So I'm a non-Chinese who's downloaded it. And but also Alibaba, Alipay or whatever it's called, which also enables... So Alibaba, I've mentioned this before, but for people who are not aware, is like the Chinese Amazon. Jack Ma, he's been in the news recently for comments that he's made, about why the U.S. economy is kind of like crap right now. And so Alibaba, which also enables digital payments. And this is another one of those areas that American companies like Facebook, they're itching to get into that, because imagine being Zuckerberg and having all those savory bits of transaction data. They're all about data. Facebook is basically just a personal data mine, which they use to farm your bits of data. And then, they grow these lovely data onions, and then they sell them to advertisers. So, WeChat alone has 700 million users. 700 million users. Think about that. So that's twice the total U.S. population. Oh, man, that's crazy. But, yeah, the obvious caveat, to that, all that being, though, that the bulk of those users are all living in China. Because, China has 1.6 billion people. And, but that's just a testament, it's not, it's more than that. It does go beyond that, and it will continue going beyond that, I predict. Based on what we're seeing, if you follow these trends. And, but that's just a testament to being the world's largest digital economy if you really think about it. Because if that's a taste of trends to come, like and I follow these things fairly closely, I would say that, yeah, this is a taste of trends to come. Then the Chinese are probably years ahead of us. And by us, I mean the US, of course. Again, if you can't tell by my accent, and you are not American, maybe other parts of Asia, like Japan, for example, are a little more on the ball with this. But we're not. And it all goes under the radar. It all goes under the radar because, our technology is all geared towards bombs and military spending. And if you turn on the American media, I mean, this is what they're taught. Everyone's got a boner about dropping the Moab. But meanwhile in China, it's easy to destroy shit. It's very easy. But meanwhile in China, China has been quietly sowing seeds and waiting for them to bear fruit. And it's looking like it's all beginning to bear fruit indeed. So I'm telling you, man, whoever controls digital technology in the 21st century is going to control the fate of the world. And everyone looks at America's military might and thinks, we're okay. No one's gonna mess with us because we've got all these bombs and things like that. But when or if China decides to pull out the economic rug from under us, not a single shot will even need to be fired. And I think that's a testament also to Chinese philosophy that goes back thousands of years. I mean, just read Sun Tzu, The Art of War.